Hello, my name is Soundjip, and welcome to hopefully what will be a very small SJ Talks on my opinions on materialism and why I believe that that is not the type of thinking that will create the best life for people. Essentially, materialism is believing that matter is the source of everything in life. So, believing that life itself is purely material and is purely physical. In a sense. Everything is caused by a physical thing. Every catalyst for every reaction is physical. So even emotions are just caused by hormonal changes or brain activity, stuff like that. So I don't personally agree with that. I don't think that everything is material. And I'll give you an example of me disagreeing with that. So I had a conversation with my uncle about it was actually just about spending money or spending money on pleasurable things. Um, and I think my point was that if I don't really need it, I typically won't go for it unless I like really want it and I can afford it, obviously. But um, and he agreed with me, but he made a point. He made the point that while what I said is true, I shouldn't just deprive myself of material pleasures just because. Which, yes, I do agree with to a certain extent, but I do also believe that too much material pleasure is just it just overloads your brain and takes you off of what could make you be living a more impactful life, I guess. I don't even mean impactful in like the outer world sense. I just mean impactful to you, as in something that makes you feel like you're being true to yourself. Um, I also, when I was in after that argument, it wasn't really an argument; it was just a discussion. But he made the point that, and I think this is a materialist point of view. That he made the point of everything that you gain through life, everything that you gain through life that has a material value dedicated to it, or is a material object, so material value, or sentimental value per se, is essentially just like I don't know, like a certificate or a medal or something like that for sentimental material value. And actual material is a guitar amplifier or weights or stuff like that. And essentially, he made the point that eventually, when you die, that is what you leave behind, and it's what you're remembered for. Which I guess, I guess, sort of literally that's true, but I I don't agree with that. I believe that while you will be remembered for some of the stuff that you own, that per se, but well, not per se, but I will say that you'll be remembered for some of the things that you owned. I certainly hope that I'm not remembered, that I'm only remembered for what I owned or the physical land that I lived on. I'd rather be remembered for the actions that I did or the ideas I brought to the table. I would rather be remembered for that than the than what I accumulated through life. Essentially, that's just my view on materialism, and it's just I can't get behind a worldview that purely believes that there isn't something more, and life is purely material in nature. I believe that, for example, I don't think you can materialize a feeling such as love, or even hatred, um, stuff like that. Very strong emotions. I think you can materialize the more shallow ones. I think you can materialize them, but I don't think you can materialize compassion, love, selflessness, and empathy. Selflessness isn't really an emotion; it's a state. But um, yeah, empathy, compassion, and love, and hatred too, because those are very strong emotions. Even happiness, that's not necessarily an emotion. That's more of a state, in my opinion. That's more of a you're in that state of mind. Happiness is more of a state of mind, in my opinion, than an emotion. But that's my view, and I believe that those can't be explained purely by hormonal changes in the body or purely by the release of X chemical in the brain here or dopamine for motivation or stuff like that. I believe that there is some form of meaning to those emotions. There's something from within to feel those, and whether that be a higher power such as a god, or many gods, or whether that just be the universe and the unknown wondrous powers that lie within it. And I think that I agree with that more. I agree that there is something driving us, something higher than us, something that we don't really fully understand. And I think that maybe that is why so many religions exist in this world. I feel like if we truly knew this higher being, this higher thing, if we truly knew, if we knew it completely, to where we completely knew the truth of this higher being, we knew exactly what this higher being was like, there would be one, or maybe even two, maybe religions, and they just always taught the truth about this higher being and how this higher being wants you to be. But, clearly we don't know the truth of this higher being. We don't know if there is a god, or if there is many gods, or if there's like demigods or stuff like that. We don't know. For all we know, Greek mythology could be true. For all we know, Norse mythology could be true. For all we know, a religion from like 50,000 years ago could be true. That was made by like humans and Neanderthals, that were like all together in a group, and they figured out the truth to this higher power, but then they all died, and now we don't know this higher power, and all we have is like what they left, and all they left was like their tools. So like that's the materialism in a sense, where like their tools are only the only thing that they left, but because they left their tools and that's all you have, you don't actually have any of the information or any of the ideas that made them them. So if they're not them, and they only have the tools, and you only have what they made and the like stone they carved and the hand axes and stuff like that, you don't have their culture. You only have their, well, you only have their material. You only have their like, it's like a house, or it's like a. I'm gonna go with a castle. So a castle is really only a piece of like massive piece of stone, or like massive pieces of stone put together. But if a castle has like banners and flags and stuff like that, it has a culture. It has a meaning to it, and that automatically feels more inviting to people. I think that just a castle on its own, just being a massive piece of stone, is interesting and evokes curiosity. But with it having banners and flags and symbols, that automatically makes you want to be like, well, what is this symbol? What does this flag mean? What were these people like? Where were these people? What do these people look like? Why is like this painting that's painted on the floor and it goes up in the walls? Why is it all like why does it have like fish all over the place? But then the fish is like surrounded by like, the circle of fire. And what does that circle of fire mean? Is that like is that like some religious thing? Like something like that is, in my opinion, while it is made from material objects, it evokes immaterial feelings. It evokes immaterial thoughts. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's a word, but immaterial has to be a word. No, it's not, because you can't have anyway. Yeah, that's just my thoughts there. I think that materialism is it's useful, and it's very useful to a certain extent of being able to give people a solid explanation, but to me it's so shallow and so, I don't know, it makes me sort of, it makes me feel empty, and that nothing really has a meaning, because apparently nothing has meaning. We're just going to die and give all of our, material back to the earth, and all we're remembered for is like the massive shelf that we owned that had like 4 gold statues on it. Like, no, I don't like that. But obviously, what I like and don't like are not necessarily good in an argument, because it's all about truth. But I do think that the truth is that materialism, well, it could be true, and 100% I'm open to it being true. I don't think it necessarily is likely to be true, because even if materialism is true, and even if everything is created from a material, or if every catalyst is a material, there are still things that aren't materialistic in nature, such as For example, like I said, love, religion isn't necessarily material as much as you could argue that it's to control a society, but a society isn't materialistic usually either. It's usually a set of values, and values aren't materialistic. Values are very much personal, and they're very much like, how can, I think a question I'll give to you, just to end this off, is how can people be so different and have so much different moral values if we're apparently all the same at heart, and we're all just like, um, and we're all just these material beings that act on hormonal changes, because apparently we all have like, because we all have the same, like, we essentially have the same like bodies, like, biologically, right? So how do we all have these different values and morals and all the stuff that we hold up? Why is the west of the world different to the east of the world? Why is there so much cultural dissonance, and why is there so much separating us? Why are we so different when we're meant to be the same? And it's because, in my opinion, we're different at heart. And leaving people in two different places, you're going to get one person who's different at heart to another person who lives in that same area. But that also applies to one person living in the east and one person living in the west. So that person in the east is going to have very different values to the person living in the west. Because no matter what, even if you think society is simply just a bunch of shared values, those shared values did have to come from one person at one point to create the catalyst for those shared values. One person at one point had at least like 5% of the values you live in that society now. So that essentially, in my opinion, means that materialism can't be used to create a society, or create a society that is a truly united society. You need to have a society that takes in other people's views or other people's feelings about things, and doesn't only focus on material objects that come from that sector what that comes from that sector of people. So um that's essentially my argument against materialism. And I hope you enjoyed this SJ Talks. I literally just got this idea like 2 minutes before recording this, so it probably isn't very concise at all, but yeah, I just hope that it was useful, and I do hope that you enjoyed it. So I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.